Now, welcome to the bulletin once again. About 20 civil society groups have combined their forces to pile pressure on the Electoral Commission to abandon its decision to compile a new voters register in an election year. According to the group, the EC does not seem to have undertaken a comprehensive assessment to ascertain that an entirely new system is a sure way to go. As a result, they do not support a proposal for a new voters register. The groups, which include the Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition, GACC, Center for Democratic Development, CDD Ghana, Ghana Integrity Initiative, and Send Ghana, among others, questioned the timing of the EC's planned action. Listen to Vice President of Imani Africa, Kofi Bento, speaking on behalf of the group.
The EC should open up the electoral register for voters to verify their names, update the existing software in ways to make it more efficient, remove names of persons suspected dead or who do not verify their names. They can work with vendors to prime the hardware where needed, replace the faulty ones. We need to bear in mind that the NIA has struggled to complete its exercise in 3 years. So the EC purporting to do this in less than 1 year, replace hardware and software and databases, and indeed, at the meeting we left, they said they needed to have a new data center. To do all of that in the space of a year is not impossible, but it suggests that we are all going to have a very stressful time. And there is no guarantee that it will be successful, but there is a guarantee that it's going to cost us a lot of money. Let the NIA do that work. The NIA can then send the EC the subset of information it needs for the purpose of the next election.
They provide more justification for kicking against the move. Mr. Bento maintains that the EC has not demonstrated that there is a defect with the biometric data, which was used as recently as 2 months ago on a nationwide scale, to necessitate the expenditure on a new one.
I believe that the EC has not demonstrated that there is a defect with the biometric data, which was used as recently as 2 months ago on a nationwide scale to necessitate the spending of $70 million on mass registration. It has already conducted limited registration for the district elections and should be using that benchmark cost for the general elections limited registration. If the EC wishes to acquire new BVRs and BVDs, and so far it has said little to justify why it needs to do so, it can publish a transparent, well-publicized tender to bring the cost to less than 15 million, not the 36 billion it claims it requires. In summary, the EC does not seem to have undertaken a comprehensive enough assessment to ascertain that an entirely new system is necessary. We therefore are not able to support the proposal for a new voters register at this point by the EC.
Now, the Electoral Commission says it is open to the idea of compiling a new voters register for the 2020 election from the database of the National Identification Authority if the authority can finish its exercise in good time. The concession comes on the back of public resistance to plans by the EC to overhaul the current electoral system, which it says will be unable to support the 2020 presidential and parliamentary elections. At a meeting with selected journalists here in Accra, the EC argued most of the devices in the current electoral system are burnt out. Dr. Yao Ofori is a consultant at the Commission.
Electoral Commission this evening has been meeting with selected journalists to try and convince them why there is the need to actually have a new system in place for the 2020 elections. And I have with me here one of the officials of the Electoral Commission who actually made a presentation, and we're going to be hearing from him the arguments they have in favor of having this new system in place. Please tell me your name and what you do at the Commission.
My name is Dr. Yao Ferreje. I'm an IT consultant for the Electoral Commission. We've been working with the Commission for well over 6 months now, trying to build up the systems, create capacity, and essentially keep the systems alive for the elections and the registrations that we've done so far.
Right. Now, why is it that we've used the same electoral register and the systems for the district level elections and the referendum, and yet for the 2020 elections you're saying that you can't use it?
Well, the point must be made that our ability to use, or we using the register for the referendum and then the district level elections, has not been without adventure. we've really had to put in a lot of work. And if you were here earlier, when you would have heard the chairperson say that we had to keep people in a warehouse for over 6 months, just refurbishing machines so that they'll be used for verification on voting day. It was difficult, it was painstaking, but it had to be done because we had nowhere else to go in terms of doing an upgrade, and acquisition was going to take forever. So it was important for us to work on those machines and ensure that we got them ready for the referendum and the district level elections.
Now, getting them ready for the referendum and the district level elections and taking 6 months to do that, does it mean that it can't be used again? I mean, if you've gotten them ready, they should be ready for the 2020 election.
Yes, but once again, the district level elections, for instance, it was reported as being fairly uneventful, right? But for those of us who were actually maintaining and managing the systems, we were sitting on tenterhooks because we realized that if a few of them fail, we would be in serious trouble because we simply didn't have enough to go around the country. All right. Plus, it's just as well that during the district level elections, the voter turnout was not that as you would expect during a general election. So the pressure on the systems was not as massive as you would expect during general election, and therefore the failure rates were not that significant. But that rate could easily spiral during an election, where lots of people are, during general elections, people are really interested and want to cast their votes. So the pressure on those verification devices is much, much, much greater compared to what we saw during the district level elections.
So the argument is, why don't we migrate the data that you have? Because the electoral register you have is just fine. You haven't complained about that. Or the information you have in there is not something you're worried about, you're complaining about. But it's the machines or the accessibility and the functionality for the 2020 elections. Why can't we just have an upgrade?
So currently, the commission is in a place where it is logged into a particular vendor. It's been logged in with this particular vendor since 2012. And the commission wants to move away from that scenario where it has no control whatsoever with regards to its data systems, its voter management system. It needs to own that space. Now, in order for us to use the existing data that we have, we will need to migrate it. Unfortunately, the biometric templates that were generated for the system that we currently use were kept in a proprietary format. That format is not convertible, so we can't use it in another system except the system that was designed by the current vendor, and that's the vendor lock-in that we are talking about. So in my discussions, I've said that for people who already have a voter ID, there will be some migration of data. That data would be the bio data, which is the name, the age, my mother's address, father's address, etc. But what we would need to recapture will be the facial image and then the 10 fingerprints that the person has. And by so doing, we intend to drastically reduce the time it takes for a registration process to take place. So we are not discarding the data that we have, not at all. We are using the data that we have, and we are improving the quality of the images that already exist in the database by acquiring new ones.
Right, so why does it have to cost hundreds of millions of cedis to do this?
Well, you know that these equipment...
Why are you requiring hundreds of millions of cedis to do this?
We are requiring hundreds and millions of cedis to do this because, number one, we need to replace the biometric devices.
Is it that they can't be used at all?
Unfortunately, the biometric devices are end of life, end of support. We can't use them because otherwise we pose a serious risk of losing data in using them. The manufacturers themselves have said that they cannot support those systems and you use them at your own peril. If you are going to conduct a new exercise of registering new people, you want to be sure that people who get registered actually have their data in the system.
Right. So BVRs need to be, or BVDs need to be replaced.
So BVRs need to be replaced, BVDs need to replace, and the central system that everything else runs on also needs to be replaced because they are all end of life. The manufacturers no longer produce them. And they've told us point blankly that, listen, if you use these devices, you're on your own.
So this is going to cost us how much?
I don't think we quite know what the exact figure is. There have been some projections.
Which figure or which ballpark figure are you looking?
I believe that during my presentation, the calculated figure for this was somewhere around about 50 million USD. Yeah. So this is something so basically what the commission did was to and that's one of the things that the commission did, to know that the prices that the previous vendor had presented to it were outrageous. So we had independent people do market surveys and analysis of the unit cost of the various components that constitute the system. And from there, we knew the quantities that we wanted to use for the 2020 election, and then we made those projections.
Right. So let's look at the timelines. You're now having to go through procurement, or in fact, you're now having to go source for these items, the equipment that you intend to use, go through procurement, and then go through the registration process itself. What timelines are we looking at?
Look at it this way. The commission has a timeline, which, like you heard, they are going to share with everybody else. And it's all been factored into the processes that need to happen in order for us to have the 2020 election. And one of the things that we've done in our procurement specifications is to ensure that the technology that we prescribe that be acquired is something that is a turnkey solution. It is ready to be used with minimal customization. Because really, if you think about it, what is it about the register? The register is really about collecting biodata and then adding a facial image that will be digitized, and then 10 fingerprints. There's nothing much to it. It's not rocket science. Okay.
How much time would you need to do this?
I think that we have adequate time to get the system ready for registration in order for us to meet our mandate for the 2020 election.
The other argument that has come up has to do with the National Identification Authority and the work the ongoing work to register, Ghanaians in the population. Why are we not using or waiting for the NIA to finish this? Then the Electoral Commission can use their information or spool their information for the register.
Let me just say that the Electoral Commission, if it had its own way, will not be going through the process of registering people. It's a laborious, painstaking process, and trust me, nobody in the Commission wants to be even engaged in it. So if the NIA will take that burden of the Commission, I'm sure that the Commission will be very happy. But remember that as a Commission, they have a mandate to ensure that general elections are conducted. What do you need for a general election? You need registered people who say essentially eligible people to vote during an election. Yes, we can use the NIA data, but is the NIA data ready? It's not.
The NIA data is not ready, but you can use it, you say.
So there are challenges with even using the NIA data.
Well, I heard the chairperson say that we can use it.
Yes, we can use it. Don't get me wrong, we can use it. And in fact, I'm a proponent for the use of the NHIA data NIA data as the source data for all the identification systems that are in the country. I'm a proponent for it. Okay. But for instance, the way in which the data was collected, for instance, did not take into consideration the polling stations of the individuals. What it means is that we may have unique individuals that the NIA can give us, but which polling station do they vote in? We don't know.
But that shouldn't be a problem from the explanation I've heard here.
Yes, so it is possible that once that data is ready, we then can start another process where we say, come with your NIA cards to your polling stations where you are, and then we would then take that. That in itself is another process that needs to be done.
But I'm sure Ghanaians would prefer that because of the cost implications. Because if we could put pressure on the NIA to deliver in good time. If, for instance, the NIA says we could finish this, they could finish it in 2 months with with adequate pressure. Are you comfortable with the NIA finishing it in 2 months so they can use it?
I think that, and it's a big if, and unfortunately the Commission is not in the business of working with ifs. We want certainties. That is why we have specific timelines or specific points where certain things must be completed. So we cannot risk an election not happening because we gambled on an if. So the Commission will make sure that it's taking every step to ensure that should something not go right, we still will be able to conduct the election. I believe that the NIA should be given all the opportunity that it needs to be able to make sure that we get a unified identity system that all agencies can use. Can they do it before our timetable?
So which is your deadline? Because that's the question I keep asking. If you can tell us that you would need it by June this year, if you can't get it before June, then you can't rely on it. Then we can work with something.
Like I previously said, there's a timetable that the elections department will publish, within which time we will tell you exactly when we expect registration to end. And then from there you can extrapolate it and say that this is the time frame that we expect, that if NIA were collecting data, they should have completed by now. Mind you, even if they collect the data, like I said, we still have to go through a process of trying to rationalize the polling station codes of the individuals who have been registered by the NIA process, because that wasn't taken into consideration when the registration was being done.
All right, thank you very much, Doc, for the explanations that you've given us. All right.
That was Dr. Yao Oforieje, who is a consultant at the Electoral Commission. Now, Mr. Kofi Bentil is Vice President of Imani Africa, and he spoke earlier on the CSO's forum kicking against compilation of a new register in an election year. He joins us via telephone. Good afternoon, sir. Now, this morning we spoke to an official of the EC who said that it seems like the civil society organizations had a prepared or pre-packaged position and were not willing to listen to the explanations proffered by the Electoral Commission yesterday.
I think that's unfortunate. If they want to go down that line, I don't think it's going to be good for anybody. The civil society organizations are not the kids. And when we came to the meeting, we had something in mind. But we came to the meeting to hear them, listen to them, and we came prepared with an open mind for them to convince us otherwise, and they failed to. Now, you must understand that we live in this country, and some of us within our midst are IT experts, and we consult. We know what has gone on in this country all these months. We know the information. Indeed, we have very detailed information about what they are doing at the EC, and put some of it to them. We even told them some of the categorical errors in the statements that they were making. So they shouldn't behave as if we are just a couple of kids who didn't know what we were doing, came with the preset mind to do whatever. They should down that line. So here's the position. We knew what was going on, and we had a position. And we gave them the benefit of the doubt and allowed them to say everything and anything they wanted to say to clear our mind. And they failed woefully. And having failed woefully, therefore, what position we had based on what our IT people told us turned out to be true. For instance, fact, they came and made a statement, a categorical statement made by Mr. Tete, that they were going to have facial recognition and totally eliminate manual verification. And our IT consultants have told us that that is not possible. Which people are they consulting and telling them things that are impossible?
How is that not possible?
It is not possible because facial recognition is inferior to fingerprinting. So you cannot use that to eliminate something that fingerprints can eliminate. Number two, there is no system in the world where manual verification is totally eliminated. And they themselves know it. Our consultants have told us about the NIST worldwide standards out of the US, that 1.97 or so is acceptable across the world. And we had gotten 0.6. So we were told that our threshold was acceptable. We put it to them, and they agreed. The point I'm making is that we came to that meeting clearly with better information than their IT consultants had given them. So this whole mind, the path they are going down, I don't think is useful for anybody. We are somewhere where now we are quite sure that the excuses that EC is giving or the reasons they are giving for trying to spend $100 million for a totally new system cannot be justified. And that's what we said. I just heard the IT consultants say that they are prepared to use the NIA equipment, but they want certainty. Look, the NIA is a professional, legally set up institution to collect data. They have more capabilities in data collecting than the EC. The EC's core job is elections. So if they want to procure all these things, you want to procure a data center, we have data centers. You want to procure BVRs, we do have BVRs. You want to procure iris equipment, the NIA has it. They should borrow those things. We have to think as one country. Okay, so if even the NIA has to suspend its work and do what the EC wants, so be it. So the point we're making is that the EC has not been convincing in getting this country to spend $100 million for something which is clearly questionable, when every year they have been spending money to upgrade that system? And they just used it 2 months ago.
Mr. Benson, on the argument of the NIA, the consultant said that their timelines may not work with the Electoral Commission's timelines, in that they may not finish soon enough so the Electoral Commission can use that source data to populate a new register.
I think, again, that argument is easy to see. The EC wants to start something what they haven't started as of today. And as we speak today, the NIA has everything that they need to do that work. It would just take leadership, political leadership, thinking as one country, for the NIA to spend what they are doing. I'm saying that is an option. Even if it means putting these things to the, giving them to the EC to use. My point is, why spend $100 million of money we don't have to go and purchase things that we already have, to do a job that we can already do, especially when you have not proven that that job needs to be done? We just used this system 2 months ago.
They argue that, Mr. Bentel, by saying that there is biodata, which is our names and our polling station numbers, which can be used, but there's biometric data, which is our fingerprints data, which has been locked by STL, the old contractor, and we can't access, for which reason they need to take that data anew.
And excuse me, that argument or whatever position they are taking is really, I don't know what word to use, but it cannot be true. They just used the system 2 months ago. And before the last 2 months, they have used it 4 times. I do not think that data that is ours can be locked up by the service provider. And if that is the situation, we can easily write and get it back. I don't think they have any particular use for that data, for which reason it's not going to be. These people have not restricted our use of the data all these years, including the last. What is special about the next election?
Perhaps it will be because our contract with them has expired, and so, well, they will not be obliged to allow us to access that data, Mr. Bento.
But I don't think the EC is even trying, all right? And I don't think that we are incapable as a nation of asking these guys to let us have our own data. That whole argument is really some way, but my point is that cannot be such a done deal that we'll not be able to get that data back. And I'm saying that I don't think it is true that the data has been locked down and we cannot use it, because we used it 2 months ago. So whatever they did to use it 2 months ago and 4 times before then, why can't they just do the same thing? Why can our government not go and talk to them? Why can't our AG not go and talk to them? Why can't we not send our lawyers and agree something with them? Even if we have to pay them for the use of that data for the last time, I don't think it's going to cost us $100 million. So, I mean, I don't think that's a good enough excuse, for which reason now they want to buy data centers, they want to buy software, they want to buy hardware. If the fingerprint issue is the only issue, why are we buying data centers? Somebody is driving a procurement agenda and finding an excuse for it. And I don't think it's good enough. If this is the only reason, it should be solvable.
Well, there are a few other reasons, and Mr. Bentel, you have referred to what Dr. Yawoforeje, the consultant to the Electoral Commission, said about the NIA. And so I want us to take a quick listen to it so you can address them in a stepwise manner. Let's hear him now.
Yes, so it is possible that once that data is ready, we then can start another process where we say, come with your NIA cards to your polling stations where you are, and then we would then take that, which is that in itself is another process that needs to be done.
But I'm sure Ghanaians would prefer that because of the cost implications. Because if we could put pressure on the NIA to deliver in good time, if, for instance, the NIA says we could finish this, they could finish it in 2 months with with adequate pressure. Are you comfortable with the NIA finishing it in 2 months so they can use it?
I think that, and it's a big if, and unfortunately the Commission is not in the business of working with ifs. We want certainties. That is why we have specific timelines or specific points where certain things must be completed.
Mr. Bento, he says that working with the NIA is a big if, and the Electoral Commission cannot work with uncertainties.
Well, it speaks as if we don't have a government in this country. It speaks as if they live in a silo. It speaks as if they live on a different continent or a different country. And he does not tell us if they have tried to do that. Again, I repeat, if you're asking a poor country like Ghana to spend $100 million, this cannot be the excuse for going to do that. He should be telling me that we have tried to speak to the NIA. This is what we tried to do. The president says this, the minister says that, and then this is why we cannot do what we cannot do. That excuse is not sufficient for going to buy a fresh data center, a fresh set of servers, a fresh set of software, and sending us all through 6 months or so of a re-registration exercise. I haven't heard the NIA say they cannot or will not assist.
Right.
And I haven't heard any minister or president take on this matter as if it was serious. So my point is this. If he is saying what he's saying, then I am very assured that the problem is not a serious problem and we can solve it. I think they must engage with the NIA, and this is where the ministers and the president and all the other leaders of this country come together and save us $110 million, which we don't need to spend.
And also on the issue of the data lock-in, I get the sense from you that that will be the solution as well, to engage with STL. Exactly.
You know, they raise reasons why they want to spend money, and every single reason they raise, it's easy to debunk because there clearly can be better solutions to that. And I want to hear them tell me that they have engaged STL, and STL says, absolutely not, we are not going to give you your data. Then we can take care of that. But they don't seem to tell me that. They seem to say, well,
what happens if they say they won't give us the data?
Well, I haven't heard a serious argument about that, except to say, oh, we asked them, they said they won't give us the data. Get your lawyers involved, get other people involved. I want to see some seriousness on the side of the EC regarding this matter. And if that country is working in this, if that company is working in this country, even if it's an international company, there are all kinds of ways, okay, to get that fact. And again, how come they got us to use it, or they gave it to us to use last 2 months and 4 times before then? What has changed? At the end of the day, that data is not useful to them. What if we and just obtain our data? I want to hear some more serious, approach to this matter than just throw up your hand. They say don't give it to us, and so let's go and spend $100 million.
Thank you very much, Kofi Benson, for joining us. He's Vice President of Imani Africa. You're still live on JoyNews Desk.